Welcome to the latest episode of Rich and Wibo present the Local Artist Show. We have a repeat guest, great guy. He was on last time with his wife. This time he's going solo. His name is Angaza. He's the co-founder of Our Culture is Beautiful, but he's done so much more. And I'm so glad to have you on the show. And it's a perfect time to have you on the show because we're recording this in the end of June. So we just had, for the first time ever, Juneteenth is a federal holiday. I want to talk about that. Before we get into that, I want to talk about what you and Wibo both did recently. There was the, is it called the Northwest Music Festival, I think, in Toronto?
Yeah, Dance Around the World. So it's sponsored by Northwest. But it's, and they had different activities in different places throughout Torrington. And it's very, very, very great because it gives people a chance to express themselves, to play the different kinds, whatever, reading poetry, playing music, dancing. The theater, the youth from the theater, they did their thing. I kind of like was the sound person and also got to play the drums, but it was great. And then they had the students from Torrington, I think it's Torrington High School, and they did different dances, Mexican dances. And that was really fantastic. So they did about 4 or 5 sets of that. One lady did an inspirational interpretive dancing. That was great. And then they had just an exercise where they were doing, so you could stress and loose up and all that. I got a few kicks in, but I said, I'm not doing too much.
That's funny. Now, what about you, Wibo?
I was there.
Tell me about it.
I was there. They threatened me to sing a song. I sang a couple songs.
What'd you think? What song?
Stand By Me.
Yep. No Wibo, Stand By.
Stand By. Stand By. Stand By.
All right.
One of my favorite songs.
Favorite song of all time? Well, Wibo, you sing well. I've heard you plenty of times sing that song. And unfortunately, I wanted to make it there and I completely forgot that it was my day off. And I know I saw pictures of it and it looked like you guys had such a great time. I saw you playing.
Oh, we did. We did.
And then I saw you go down the street to Howard's bookstore. I guess he was reading poetry.
Yeah, John Noki was reading poetry. That was on Juneteenth.
Okay.
The Juneteenth thing, but the Dance Around the World thing is done. Was done the 21st, and they had different activities. They had groups singing over at what was the name of that place? The Outlet. It's up by Chaz. He kind of promotes groups. He does music and he, it's just a lot of groups that people who don't know how to record. He helps them with their recording and stuff. He has very reasonable price in doing that. So it's like very good to have somebody like that in the community who can help, new artists and stuff like that. That's what he does.
That's the one on Water Street?
No, he's not on Water Street. He's on, what's that street, Wibo, that's off of, when you come up, I can't think of the name of that street, but it's one of the little sides. It's sort of like a church-like building. Wait a minute, I got his card.
Oh, you talking about Barber Street?
Yeah, I think it's Barber.
Yeah, 59 Barber Street, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. I knew if anybody would know, you would know, so.
No.
Yeah, it's called the Outlet. And Outlet for the Arts. So he does different things. He records up and coming groups, and he's been in that field for a long time. His name is Chaz DeVito.
Okay.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
So he records up and coming groups. If somebody's interested in recording a demo or anything.
Yeah, and he'll teach them. If they never did it before, he works with them. Like we're gonna do some stuff over there, and we've never really did that. So we're gonna probably be doing something this Saturday.
Get ready.
Well, I want to talk about that because last time we had you on the show, you and your wife, we talked about how you play drums, so you do that. But first, give our viewers a refresher course. What is Our Culture is Beautiful? I want to go over that again.
Our Culture is Beautiful is it's a group of us that we basically talk to people about diversity. We do programs in the school. We also do art work. So we have people come in and, we work with people, different people doing, just like the Dance Around the World had different groups there. So we try to facilitate and work with different groups to come together and share their culture. One day we did some African drumming along with a guy that was playing the bagpipes. And we did that over at and we had a great time doing that. And so we do stuff like that. And we also go into, we spend time at Oliver Wolcott. We did sessions there, about 10 sessions with the kids on diversity and developing yourself and, self-awareness and all of that. So, and they were surprising, because what it was is we didn't know if they were getting this. But by the end of the class, we had everybody speak. And we felt like, man, they're speaking so good, they could do this. Because they really came together and worked together real well. And so also some of the people in the group, have faced different issues because, the LGBT community, some of the kids were involved in that. So we had a great time with them, working with them, centered around just culture development, dealing with issues like racism, dealing with issues like, just being able to have people feel accountable or feel like they can go into situations and not feel intimidated. Like if you go downtown sometimes and you don't speak the language, or sometimes you can be intimidated by the way. So we spoke to the mayor about that. And we said, you need to have folk who understand that when some folk come in here, they're going to feel somewhat intimidated because their English is not that great. Yeah. And so they need the help. And so you have to be more user friendly. And in other words, you have to work with these folk, and, knowing that, don't look down on them, just be understanding. Put yourself in their place and how they coming into this bureaucratic system and may feel intimidated because they don't have, maybe they don't speak the language as well and they're just learning. And so, just issues like that. We work with the police chief. We just recently had a meeting with him last week and talked about issues like Black watches, talked about issues about a citizens board where the citizens can come in and work with you guys, and also they're going to invite some community folk in to speak to the staff so that they can have better community relationships and stuff like that. So and then they just have an ongoing meeting like once every other month with the staff, with the police chief and the mayor, so that we can have, our culture, so that we can understand the differences in culture, and then just make sure that everybody's culture is represented. Because sometimes people, once again, if you're the dominant culture, you don't get the other cultures don't get a chance to express themselves. We're looking for diversity. We're looking for inclusion. We're looking for people to be able to feel comfortable in their skin and accepted wherever they are.
Yeah. Well, I love that, and I love what you do because I think it's more important now than ever. In such a lot. I mean, it's always been an ongoing thing, but now it seems like with social media, it's easier to spread your hatred. And the question I have for you is, because it sounds like you work with people of all ages. Yeah. Is that correct?
Yes.
Question I have for you before we get into is and I think it's so true. They say hatred and racism is not born, it's learned. So it seems like, do you get it? Is it easier when you go to the schools with the younger kids because they really don't even have their hatred or racism completely developed yet? and you have people who may be older and they're stuck in their ways, and no matter what you say, no, that's not the way I see it. Do you find that a lot?
You can find that the younger folk may be more open, but then you can find some young folk who have been trained in from like little kids on up, and so they see themselves as different. But yeah, so you can find both. And the thing of it is just no matter what you find, is you present yourself as open, you present yourself as kind. And we have a saying, being a minister with love and kindness have I drawn them. And so you have to just continue to be open no matter what, so that you can reach. Like recently I said, actually it was this week that I was talking with the chief, and we were talking about talking about being able to deal with folk, difficult folk, or because they have a job and they got to go in. But if you're going in, I spent 22 years as a correctional counselor. So, and if you're going in with an attitude, or going in like you're on the defense, when you're approaching somebody, you're already setting up that confrontational kind of atmosphere. So we don't want to set up confrontation.
Yeah.
We want to be wise, and we want to understand that we're not necessarily dealing in the safest of atmospheres, but we also want to go in approachable, go in friendly, go in to be able to talk with people and let people know that they can talk to us and we'll listen. And so even with the kids, sometimes you have those kids that are difficult. But one of the things that we learned, that once the kids had an avenue to express themselves, which is what we presented them with, they were able to express themselves. They did mindfulness activities, and they did kind of things where they were learning about themselves and shared that. And as we progressed along the way, like I said, pretty soon they were almost teaching the class themselves, because they bought into it. And even so much so that even when we saw them at I saw a couple of them at the graduation, because one of the young ladies at our church graduated, and being a photographer, she wanted me there, so to take some pictures. So, but
one of your many jobs that you do.
They were happy to see us, and just wanted to say, well, they were like, why did y'all stop? Well, school is out, we can't do, but it was fun. And it was like, and yes, like I said, sometimes you run into those situations where the parents have had issues with racism, and that spills over to the kids. But then you also, they tend to be more open if you can reach them, and you let it, and they can be there. And kids tend to work with kids a lot too. So once they have that forum, or once they have that avenue and they can speak up, they do. And sometimes, but like I don't care what age they are, we gotta really still present ourselves friendly. And
I love that, because as you said, if you go in there defensive, they're gonna feel that, and then it's just gonna push them back even more. So the fact that you come in open, friendly, embracing, warm, after a while, you may not win them over at first, might even take a couple times, but then they're like, these people are so great. Why would I even want to hate them? So I love that you eventually you're going to win them over. And I love that saying by Mark Twain, travel is fatal to prejudice. And it's so true. People that live basically in their own little square and don't go anywhere and just go down the streets, the same place all the time, see the same people, they have no idea what the rest of the world is like. And if they travel somewhere else, they'd realize how good we have it, how good it is here, how great people are, and from all different cultures. And you can learn so much. There's another saying that I love. It's like, when you talk, all you hear is what you know. When you listen, you actually learn something. So I like, I love those two. And I am so lucky that I still have great parents, and they taught me to be open-minded. They gave me so many different kinds of influences in music, culture, and I was able to see all of this at such an early age. And now, I'm 53 years old, and I just love all types of things. I love learning new things. And that's why I have love having people like you on our show, because I think people would be much happier and maybe not as angry if they realize there's so many different things to do out there. There's so many different kinds of people, and we can all get along.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's very tenable. We should always be willing to share with people, to learn. I like what you said, your quote from Mark Twain. I mean, we love to travel. We love to experience different things. My wife and I are always going to different places, and it's like learning. It's like growing. It's like, don't stay. I mean, even as a kid, growing up in Baltimore, I was like always wanting to just go other places. I remember one time when I was real young, I jumped on the bus. My mother didn't know it. I was about 5 or 6 years old. I went downtown and I came back and told her about it. And she said, boy.
Let's just say how they used to say it in those days, I'm going to tan your hide.
Yep, that's it. Hard.
No, it would sound. Now, what other parts of the world have you been to?
I've been to Africa. That's the farthest I've been. Like Canada and a little bit of Mexico. But that trip to Africa was like a dream. And at the time that when I went there, I had just purchased a Nikon, and I was like, and then digital had just kind of come out, so no more film. So I just went crazy.
So you got a Polaroid.
Yeah, I took about 6,000 shots or more. I was photographing everything, and it was like, because it was new, and what made it so great is that my son-in-law, we went there and stayed with his family, and they wouldn't let us pay for anything. They just took care of us. They took us around. They showed us different sites. I got to experience in Africa. It was such a tremendous. There's no like middle class in that particular area that we were in. I mean, you either got money or you don't. And the poverty, and they're like in the jail systems. If your people don't bring you something to eat, you hurt. Because that ain't like over here. in certain parts, they ain't feeding you. If your family don't bring you food, so your family's like usually there every day to bring you something to eat. But it was a very educational trip, because when we went there, we went to Angola, and we stopped also in Ethiopia for a few days. And so we learned a lot. So it was a great experience, and just getting to, and then when we got there also, but the thing of it is, when we got there was some separation, because there was some racism involved in that, because when we got off the plane, all the people of color got put into a hotel, which was very sleazy and everything. And the other folk were put into this nice hotel. And so I was like, I started a little protest movement right there this is when we stopped over in Egypt. We was in Addis Ababa. And I was like, man, this is not right. This hotel is sleazy. I don't even want to stay here. I'm not gonna have my family stay here. So I complained so much. I told them I'd rather sleep in the airport than sleep here. Didn't realize that that's what they had done, because we didn't know why they were putting certain people off in one area, and they put us off in this really radical, impoverished area. And it was like all of us were on the plane. We were all in the same section. So there shouldn't have been it shouldn't have been that kind of discrimination. So I had to start a little protest movement, and they finally got us out and sent us where they sent everybody else. But some of the people were just sitting there, wouldn't say anything. But I was like, nah, I've been in the movement too long, and I'm not just gonna sit here and take this, because it's not right. I didn't know that's what was going on, but where we was, I didn't feel comfortable or adequate. I felt like that it was a bad place to be putting people. So that's why I started. Then I find out the reason that they had separated, and they make deals. They make deals with some of these hotels so that it's like, okay, we'll see if we can get these people. And some of the people are so used to that, they don't even protest. The Africans that we were with didn't say anything. The people that were from Africa.
They probably thought it was normal. So then that was probably normal, which is really sad.
Yeah.
I'm surprised.
It was. And then after I had gotten the airline to move us, then these guys started speaking up and saying like, well, I'm Dr. So-and-so, and I said, you wasn't Dr. So-and-so when we were trying to get out of here.
It's something you could have said about 25 minutes ago. It's sad. Now, how is it with the government down there? Does the government, like an example would be North Korea, they have all the money, they don't give any of the food, any of the money to their people.
It's sort of like that in some countries. It's like, yeah, you could, like I said, that division, you can see that division. There's there's no middle class.
Yeah.
Either you got money or you're impoverished. And a lot of people, and we were in Angola, and Angola was a war torn. I remember reading about it as growing up, being like working for social change. Africa was one of the places I used to read about. And I read about Angola, and at the time, I'm talking the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s and stuff. So I'm talking that period of time that I was like out as an organizer working to bring about social awareness and consciousness in Baltimore and in other cities like in New Haven and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I read about those things. And then when I went to Angola and saw that the wars that had taken place in the 60s and the 70s and 80s, but that country was still ravaged. You could see the results of torn up buildings and stuff like that still there. And this was like 2010, 2006, 2008 that I went there. And I'm like, wow, this stuff is still here.
Yeah.
It's still, so yeah, there's still that division. There's that government monopoly. And yes, in some, whereas in other countries, more progressive countries like Ghana, or like even in some places like Tanzania, those, the people, they would have more of a government for the people, which we talk about, but also we recognize, so yeah, it's still that division in certain places.
So you and your wife go down there. Does it just you and your wife to go down there, or do you have a whole group of people going down there?
When I went at the time, I went with my daughter and her husband, because what it was, we were going over there to like a wedding.
Okay.
Man, and that's a cultural thing in itself. Their weddings last 3 days.
All right, they know how to party. they may be poor and they may have a lot of other issues.
Yeah,
But they know how to party.
Yeah.
Well, the people we were staying with, they weren't part of they had a little money because the father was a big preacher. The uncle was police chief, and and they lived in a house. They had servants in the house. So this is where we stand. We stayed at a place. The place was like, they had the main house, and then they had little like apartment likes all around the house. And all of this was like blocked in with a wall and stuff. And they had a security guard there. And so your guests can stay in a house that's like they stay there, but they don't really stay, but everybody eats in the main house. And they cook dinner, and like every meal, there's no like fast food. So every meal was prepared. So we were living large. And on top of it, wasn't spending no money because they wouldn't let us spend them.
All I know is if I ever decide to go on a trip to Africa, I'm bringing my good
Yeah.
friend Angaza.
Oh, yeah.
So,
So it was quite a trip, you know. Like I said, being able to and culturally watching and seeing the differences.
yeah.
They had, like, with the wedding in particular, the wedding lasted 3 days. The first day they have what they call a civil wedding, and they sign the papers and the documents, and it's they have a little like ceremony, but it's like brief, and it's just more about the legal aspect of it. And they're signing papers. They sit down and sign the papers and stuff, and they have like a brief kind of celebration. The next day they have the church wedding. And the church wedding lasts about maybe 2-3 hours. I don't know. It was
Party time.
it was a lot. It was so long, I think my batteries went dry. And then after that, they have the reception. Now you seen Coming to America.
Yep.
Oh,
And when they was marching, so they come in, this setup that they have, they come in under pomp and circumstance. And it's like, wow, this is like watching Coming to America. And so, and this is my son-in-law's brother that's getting married. And I'm like, man, so they march all the way around, and then they come and sit at this table, and their table, the head table, is sitting up and looking down upon everybody else. And then they got these long tables full of food. And it's no exaggeration. Now, it's funny because at the house that we were staying, there was a goat. And the lady said, well, this is going to be on the table tomorrow. And so I'm like, is she serious? She said, that's why he crying so much. Ain't gonna be dinner.
Yeah. I love your pet. No, that's dinner for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. So it sounds like it was so long that when they first started, they got married. And by the third day, they already had grandkids and were divorced.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's how long that their wedding reception lasts.
It was quite because we went to the reception and we didn't realize that wasn't the main reception. The main reception started at 12 midnight.
Oh my God.
So that's the second day. And the main reception starts at 12. And then the third day is just for family. The family, and they have food and they come together and they party. As a matter of fact, we went home because we like, I mean, man, my partying days were over anyway, but I mean, this was like,
no, I don't believe that.
This was like, are you kidding? I thought we done hung out thinking we done something. And the lady said, nah, the party don't start till 12 midnight.
Ooh. Nighttime.
So we eating all this food and having a great time. But I mean, but it was a 3-day wedding. But they took us around, they gave us a tour of the country and, you know, different things and stuff like that. But it was beautiful. It was beautiful. Some parts are so torn up and ravaged, but then there's some that are so beautiful. Like we were on the Kwanzaa River, and I was like, man, this is phenomenal. I just, like I said, I just went crazy. I took so much. We had a slideshow after from the pictures that I took, and then you have to be careful also, because you can't take pictures of banks and stuff like that. And they got armed guards standing out in front of the banks, you know, and she said, don't do that. You could get us arrested.
What's the reason for that?
I don't know. They just like, basically because for one thing, they have the guards there because, I mean, I guess because there's still some parts of war, and then there's still they must have some notorious robbers or something, but they got not just inside this security, but outside there's 2 guys standing out there with AK-47s.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, okay, that lets me know I ain't in America for sure.
Put the camera down.
Yeah, that's it. Party's over.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
So what was the richest part of Africa? Like, do they have like a, I mean, an example would be, I'm trying to think of like, maybe like Hartford compared to Greenwich. They have, I know you said the war-torn areas. Is
When
there
you
an
look at
area where
like,
there's, yeah, like,
yeah, like even in where we were in the capital of Angola. So
Okay.
that's Luanda. Now that's you're gonna find some very rich families in that. I mean, when you go to places like Nigeria, you're gonna find that division. You're gonna find different, like even in Ethiopia, when we were in Ethiopia, there was that division because we could tell. It's in one part of Ethiopia, they tell you, we were on the bus coming from the airport. They said, keep your windows closed. Don't lean out the windows because they will snatch. One lady said they snatched the earrings off her ears.
Wow, that's crazy.
So that's so, and they run up to the bus. And me, you know, being me, I'm like, and they were like, you better put that camera in the
it's like, oh, look at a robbery.
Put this down.
Oh man. So have you ever been to Brazil?
No, it's one place I want to go to, but I've never been there.
Now, the reason I bring that up is because it was that what you just told me, there's a guy who owns a package store in Woolkit, and I became friends with him. He was telling me he came from Brazil, and he said it's the same thing at the airport. If they seem like you have money, one of his friends got shot at the airport because he refused to give him his watch. He said there's areas in Brazil, he goes, just mind your own business, don't talk to anybody, don't look, and keep everything inside your pockets and act like you don't have any money because they will take it. And I was like, well, I didn't realize it was that bad. And I mean, I guess it's like anywhere. There's some good areas.
Yeah,
and some bad
every
areas.
place, same thing.
Yeah. But
yeah, it can be, yeah, and the division is so. The place we were staying at first, when I was telling you about, and I said, nah, I'm not coming. You get me out of here. You get my family out of here. Yeah. They didn't even want you to stand in the lobby.
Wow.
That's how bad the place was. And you look at the doors and stuff, it looks like all the locks have been picked. I said, I'm not going to sleep in here. I am not going to sleep. And then some of the folk had went upstairs, went to sleep. And even my daughter and her, I said, y'all, we getting out of here. I said, I ain't had to have no protest movement in years, but I'm starting one right now.
Did you have anybody back you?
Protesting.
It started out with just me because I just stood up and said, nope, we're not doing this. We are not doing this. I said, I called up the airport. I said, you get us out of here. We're not staying here. I said, I will go to the, and then, you're in a place and you don't speak the language. So the lady was acting like, well, we don't understand you. I said, well, understand this. I don't want to be here and I don't want my family here. And so you get me the manager or somebody and you get that person because you understood English well enough when we came there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very convenient.
I know.
So so they finally I talked to the airport manager. They said, okay, sir, we'll get somebody down. And then so I woke up my family and I just went round to all the rooms. And everybody that came on the bus, I went to their room. And there were two girls that was with us, but they were young and they had went out there and they were out there in them streets. And I'm like, man, y'all go out there, but we are not going out there.
Yeah. And
so they kind of got left. So I had to go back and call up the airport and say, no, there's two people left. And, like I told you, the guy was like, well, tell him I'm so-and-so after we done already got the air. And he gonna get on the phone and just holler at the people. And the people had already agreed to do what we needed and come and get a bus and take us over to the nice hotel. And now he wants to flex his muscles and all this. And I'm like,
showing off.
And then when we get over there, those two girls that got left. So I said, well, we got to go back. And they sit there just, whatever, I'm like, wow. You have those people that all they do is looking out for themselves. But they didn't mind jumping on that bus when it came, even though.
They let you do all the work and then they're like, hey,
piggyback.
Angaza, buddy, pal. I had your back all the time.
And it was sort of reminiscent because it took me back to when we used to organize in the streets in Baltimore and in New Haven, and going about working like with the Panthers and working with different organizations throughout, just allowing us to know. And then we're still doing this at this point. And there's sometimes like I think about it, and you say, well, you get kind of like frustrated in a sense, but you keep on because you realize it's important. And we were talking about it the other day, just being just like you were, with the high school students. Get in there and talk with them. Let them know they got a voice. Let them know that they can make some changes. And that's all I look for. I mean, at my age, I ain't gonna do but so much. So I'm looking forward to trying to educate as much as I can and, work with people, like what, you and Wibo are doing, just continuing to have a platform where people can express themselves.
Yeah.
So, and it's important. It's so important. And it's a challenge. Like all my life, this is what all my adult life, once I begin to wake up and read and begin to see differences, and I say, yeah, we got to challenge the system and we got to realize, so when I remember some friends of mine telling me when the Black Lives Matter movement come along, they said, well, this is right up your alley. You've been doing this stuff for years. So I just said, well, I'm glad that these young folk are waking up because they got the energy and they got the drive and the zeal. All I can do is, walk along with them and stuff, help them along.
Do you find it harder now with social media? Because social media, like as I mentioned earlier in the interview, so much easier to spread hatred and racism. And then before, maybe people in the past would be too ashamed or they would be too afraid to voice their views. But now they're online, they're like, oh boy, everybody must think just like me. Look at this, look what they're saying. You find a lot more of that that's harder to get through to younger people or people in their 20s or even 30s. There's a lot of people that cannot live without their phone. And
I think that's a very real point, and I think that we still got to continue to have communication, and I know that for a lot of folk, that is communication. That becomes, I find that there's certain people I can reach. I can call them up I can call them up and talk to them. Some people I got to text. If I call them up, they don't respond. But if I text them, respond,
Quick.
So, and that's their media and that's their, and so and when you look at the presidential election with Barack used all that social media, and he was probably the first president to use it to that level, and he was highly successful with it because that's the way they do. That's the communication, but it is communication, and so we just have to keep it up. I think my wife is excellent at that, at reaching out, and Weibo's good at it. They just reach out. And so you have to do it because you have to know that that's the new way of communicating with some of these kids. And like, I know some of it, but it's like, I'll go to my grandkids or whatever, but I don't do bad for an old guy to really, because I use it. I have to use it. I mean, I'm lost without my cell phone now, because that's the way people communicate.
Yeah, communicate.
Like, I mean, we're a long way from phone booths.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. And I think that, we have at the touch of our fingertips, we can see what's going on right now in Africa, what's going on in Russia. We have like the world at our fingertips and we can learn so much more instead of, I think that it's sad, but it's making people dumber and it's dumbing down the nation.
True.
I love the fact that, for me, I basically just use social media to promote whatever I'm doing. And I love that for that. But yeah, that's not my only form of communication. I was speaking to a teacher and she was telling me that they were actually introducing communications back into the classrooms because kids don't even know how to speak to each other anymore.
Yeah.
It's really sad. So that's why I love us. I keep saying this, but I love having people like you, your wife, and other people go out there and spread the word and let them know that there's so many different things out there they're missing. And just recently, I want to talk about this because I saw a documentary on Bob Marley. I learned a lot. I did not realize, I love his music. I have always loved his
Mhm.
music, but I did not realize all the problems that he had in Jamaica and how political he was. He was actually trying to bring the two parties together. They had a big concert. He got shot. The name of the documentary was called Who Shot the Sheriff?
Mhm.
Yep.
He got shot in the arm. He had to go into exile for a while, and they brought him back. And it's just, I didn't realize what a war-torn nation that was as well, just until recently. I mean, that was back in the late 60s, 70s.
You know, Malcolm X said history is best qualified to reward all research. People don't do enough research, and so therefore they don't know the history of a lot of places.
No,
And that's one of the great parts about being able to, you know, it's like you were saying, social media it allows us to get information, but we still have to learn how to communicate and talk with each other. And so I think that one of the great things for us is we were able to go into the school system, talk to the kids. We use social media to reach out, but at the same time, we went in there, we did mindfulness activities with them. We went in and we did other things that had them to talk about and to begin to communicate, because you got to open up, because social media, you can get very separate. You can get into your world. You can really get into your world and don't even, you can look and you see people on the elevator and on any kind of public transportation, and they're right next to each other.
Yeah.
Or be in the house. One of the things that my kids, I used to try to always emphasize with my kids is, let's sit down and have dinner together.
Mhm.
Let's have dinner. Don't want to get away from that, because that was a part of being able to communicate and to see how everybody was doing. And to share. And so every now and then, so like I know that I have to call up my kids and talk with them, but I know I reach out to my grandkids and say, how you doing? What's up? And so I know it works because I see in my family. I mean, just recently when my grandkids text me and said, Happy Father's Day, I was like, wow. They know their granddad exists. Huh?
Mama.
Yeah.
So it's
Granddad, Papa.
but it's important, because I haven't worked in that prison system for so many years. It's like, and then I realized that it's not just because, some kids, like some people think that some of the kids don't have parents and stuff like that that go to jail and stuff. No, so it's a matter of communication sometimes.
Yeah.
Did you spend time with that kid? Did you talk with them? Did you so they would say, well, Dad, you showed up to the games, you did this, you did that, and you made us sit down and have dinner together. And so we carry that on with our families. And I'm like, wow,
Yes, we did.
I'm watching the grandkids and I'm like, wow, your mothers and they're great teachers. They're really doing great work with you. So it passes on from one generation to another. And so I was talking to my sister the other day, and we were talking about the fact that all our kids, all our grandkids are doing great, because they've been working with them. Their mothers and fathers have been working with them. And Marilyn Hickey talked about generational curses, because and they talked about two different families, how one family, a family of rogues and stuff like that, and the kids went on to become, they took off after their parents, and then the other kids who spent time with the parents, spent time with them, went to church, did great things. They become senators and all these great stuff, because they know the value of life and who they are and what they are.
Yeah.
So they're able to produce that. And it's not to say that you don't have a bad apple, or it's not to say that some good kid can't come out of a bad situation, because I've run across that also. In mentoring a lot, when we mentor kids, just recently I was one of the kids that I spent time with, working with, mentoring, he called me up. He said, I just want you to know my daughter then graduated from the Air Force Academy.
Ooh.
And I was like, this was one of the kids that we had in the halfway house that some people had given up on, and we were able to work with him. And now he become a good father and taking care of his kids. And now his daughter is graduating from the Air Force Academy.
Congratulations.
And he said, I just want you to know, because maybe, he said, I know you might have thought that you didn't reach some of us, but you did. So, and I was like, wow, that's, and it makes you feel good. It's like, because I know working in the prison system, when I first started, I was all bright eyed and I was like, okay, I'm gonna change the world. But
you know what it reminds me of? I don't know if you ever heard of a movie called Mr. Holland's Opus with Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah.
I'll explain to my viewers, or Weebos and my viewers, what it is. It's a movie starring Richard Dreyfuss, and he wants to be a writer. He goes, well, I'm going to teach on the side just so I get my book out. And he just teaches and teaches and teaches for years. About 20 years later, he goes, I just wasted my whole life. I didn't make a difference. I never got a chance to write that book. And at the end of the movie, all the students that he affected came back and said, thank you very much. I am what I am because of you and what you taught me and all the morals and principles you instilled in me. So it's very similar. Even if you just reach one person, you just reach one person there. It's definitely worth it.
It's astounding. And it seems like God always works that out. Like I know I was feeling kind of bad. And these kids, they're not kids, they were grown men. They came to me and they said, we've been looking for you. We've been trying to track you down. We wanted you to know, because I know you worked in the system and you worked with us when we were teenagers. And they said, and you saw Ronald and them, because those were the bad kids. And, Ronald and them, they didn't turn it around. They kept going back and forth to jail. But he said, but we wanted you to know that the rest of us are doing well. And so we came here because we heard you were working here and we wanted to let you know. And I was like, wow, and I saw the movie. I enjoyed that. But those kind of stories just get me all the time. They just give me kind of goosebumps. And it's like, it's what it's all about.
Yeah, it keeps you going because you're making a difference. And
every now and then I might shed a little tear. But, when I watch stuff like that, I try to be cool, but I ain't all that cool.
I think you're cool. I think you're cool. Well, look, I want to talk about, I don't know if we spoke about this during our last interview. You talked about working in the correctional center. Now, was it for teenagers? It sounds like you worked with more of the kids in the jails.
No, I work more with the adults.
Okay.
You get a lot of young, 16, 17, thrown in. Well, they had the youth part. So I was put in the youth part a lot of times because they usually tend to put older guys in with the youth to kind of settle them down. You get to work around that, but it was a growing experience for me, because it was like I said, you go in there, you're a counselor, and you're gonna save the world.
Yeah, save
it. and you got all that, but then you got to realize some of the things that you got to realize is that you got to learn to listen. You may have or think you have it all together, but you don't. And for a lot of them, the main thing was that you were able to hear what they had to say, listen to them. They could be totally wrong, but if you gave them an ear, they would appreciate it. I'll tell you an incident that really turned it around for me. This guy came into my office once, and he came in. When he came in sort of threatening, like, and I immediately went into my stance, and I'm like, you tough guy and all that. And then we get to arguing, and then all of a sudden the Lord spoke, and he said, and I said to him, why are we arguing? And he said, I don't know, I'm arguing because they told me that you wouldn't listen to me. And I said, yeah, and the way you came in here, I said, I ain't going to listen to him. But I realized, and God just spoke to me, and it was just like, calm down. Why are you even arguing with this guy? So I stopped and I said, man, we sat there and we stopped and we started talking. Now he was about 6'6", and I'm like, oh man, you know, this guy breathing fire and all that. And what I learned from that experience was hear what people are saying before you start reacting to the way they look.
True.
Don't even worry about how they looking so much, but try to hear what they're saying. And I've learned in that experience, I learned to, even in the midst of like aggressiveness, to take time to hear what's being said. And that began to change my whole outlook as a counselor. And it made me much more effective, because then I was like, man, and besides, you know, if you trusted in God, why are you worrying about getting on this? So we settled down, we had a conversation, and we talked for about maybe half an hour. And I said, well, why'd you come in here anyway? He said, man, I done forgot. But the fact that we were able to talk settled things down for him, and it made me realize you got to listen to folk. You can't be prejudging, and even though you don't think you're judging, you are. Because you got to realize, listen, some of these folk ain't never been listened to, you know. And yeah, they may be aggressive, but there were people who didn't want to talk to you. I know there were people back before I got changed and I got saved. Back before that, they used to tell me, man, when we saw you, we used to want to go on the other side of the street because you just look so mean.
Look at me.
Oh, well, you know what, it reminds me, I just like referring some of this back to movies so our viewers can get an idea of what we're talking about. Did you ever see the movie Good Will Hunting?
Yeah.
Right. Remember the scene where Robin Williams became the counselor and he sat in a room. He goes, I'm not going to say a word until Matt Damon says a word. And you're like, what are you doing? He, like, for 2 sessions straight, an hour long, I'm not saying a word. He's got to be the one that opens up to me first. And finally he broke him. So it's similar to that. He goes, I got to let him make the first move. I need to listen to him, let him know that he's being listened to. So yeah, I love that you did that, but also that you learned it from actual life experiences. Did you ever get into a time where you said, all right, get me out of here, this guy's gonna kill me?
We've been in some situations. We one time had a situation where we ran up to this block, and I know as I was running up, I started praying as I was running up. And it was 3 of us, and it was about 18 inmates. And they were refusing to lock up and all kind of stuff. And so the sergeant spoke to him, said, lock up. And they didn't say a word. They all just turned around and walked back into their cells and locked up. And he turned to me and said, you must have prayed. He said, because I've been working here for years and I ain't never seen a situation where they didn't say a word, all these mean dudes, and they just turned around and walked calmly back to their cell.
Wow.
And it was only 3 of us and 18 of them.
Wow.
And the next day they had a fight up in that same block, and a whole bunch of people got hurt. The same block. I wasn't working that night, but anyway, yeah, we've been there. I've been in a situation where a guy came at me with a broken broom ready to stab me.
God.
And come find out the reason that he wanted to stab me was because I told everybody, and which is normal, everybody to lock up. But this is when you have to be careful even of your fellow workers, because that guy was a mental case. And there was a cup, we have a cup put over the button that opens that person's cell not to let them out. They took the cup off before I came up there. And that guy was not even supposed to be out of his cell. And when I went down that corridor, he went to attack me. Like I said, he come running at me with a broken broom ready to stab me. But one of the inmates came up from behind him and took him down. and it's all a matter of how you treat people. So I had
True,
that
true.
reputation, and those guys said, man, they set you up because he wasn't supposed to be out, number one.
Yeah.
And then I looked and saw, and then the lieutenant came up and said, there was supposed to be a cup over here because it was supposed to be locked down. He wasn't, I said, yeah, I see that. You know, I said, I didn't, but there was no cup. And, you know, and that's like when I started working, sometimes the good old boys, some good old boys were working up there and they didn't like you, or they would set you up sometimes. So even in a situation like that, and it's real, it's very real.
Yeah, it is.
But the inmates, and like I said, because of my manner of dealing with them, they looked out for me. They would look out for me, and they kept me from getting hurt. You know, but I could have definitely been hurt that time because I wasn't even expected and didn't know that this guy was like that. Because you would be on you would put yourself on the defense, and you know, and so yeah, something could have happened, but it did. So
Very similar to, no, I was gonna say, sorry to interrupt you. I was gonna say it's very similar to my father. He was a cop in Woket for over 30 years. And my father didn't even tell me this, other cops told me stories. Like anytime there was a bar fight, all the other guys would jump off and help my father because he didn't treat everybody. He treated people with respect. And if they did something, he'd say, you know what, I'll give you a break. And I mean, sometimes he'd pull people over for DWIs, like, I'll let you sleep it off. And this, and he was, I'll tell you what he was like. I was in school and they're like, hey, I got arrested by your father last night. He's the coolest guy in the world. I mean, so he treated people with respect, even when he did his job, just like you. And so when it came to times where like there was a bar fight, other cops told me like 4 or 5 kids would just jump off the bar stool and said, don't mess with him. And so, yeah, you just like him, you gain the respect of the other inmates and the people and other people. And so I love the fact that you were able to break through to them. And because I'm sure it's like, well, perfect example. You told me the next night there was a big riot. So, and you weren't working that night. So just that it's all in how you treat people. I know sometimes, I mean, I'm guilty of it too. Sometimes when somebody's defensive, I'll get defensive too. I have to step back myself and say, you know what?
We all do.
Let me look at this from a different angle. And then and they'll probably calm down and I'll calm down too. I like that.
It's a great thing to be able to, and that's in essence, that's why we're here. We're trying to work together. I mean, I think if nothing else, COVID should tell us that, man, we really need to come together. And you know, you see so many atrocities. I mean, shooting kids. I mean, that's you can't get no lower than that. I mean, it's like, wow, that's a lot of evil. That's too much evil.
It is.
And it just breaks your heart. It just breaks your heart. And, you know, because you want to see people get along and you want to see people work with each other. But the first step is with us. It's with us. I mean, and no matter what, I know there are people out there that want to hurt and harm, but the first step is still with us. And so I just thank God for the strength to love folk. I thank God for the strength to keep up and to continue, you know, when I see people like you and Wibo, it's just like, it's a joy to me because it's like, there are folk out there trying to make a change and there are folk out there. So as much as people want to think that there's some bad folk out there, and I used to say that when I was working in the prison system, you know, yeah, you got a lot of folk that go to jail. And when you're working in that prison system, you think that everybody goes to jail.
Yes.
But that's maybe, you know, like a small percentage of people that actually go through that actually make those choices. And so you got the majority of folk that's going about, they may not be perfect, but they're going about trying to make life and make life work and not trying to harm people. And so we'll see that. And then people want to put all kind of figures out there. These people do this and these people do that. No, just try to always look for the best in people.
Yeah.
You know, if they do bad, pray for them.
Yeah, no, I love that. And you brought up something that made me think of this. What gets me mad is about prison's supposed to be all about rehabilitation. You go in there, you made a mistake, you learn your lesson.
Mhm.
Then you get out of jail, nobody will hire you because you have a record. Nobody wants to deal with you. And you're always, they had that stigma about you. And I just think it's unfair. I mean, depending on the crime, if you murdered somebody, whatever, that's different than, like, say, just the example would be when I was a manager at Rite Aid. I wanted to hire somebody. He had, unfortunately, 3 DWIs. He went to jail for a month. My district manager was like, you can't hire him. I said, why not? He just made a mistake. He lives right down the road. He's going to be walking. He doesn't even have to drive. Nope. He has a record. I was like, but he couldn't understand it. He was a hard worker. Unfortunately, he did have a little bit, but I mean, he never, I used to work with him before. When I was in high school, I used to work to schools with him. So I know it wouldn't affect his work. He just mostly did that at night, and he always on time. But it's just, I hate the fact that, prison's supposed to be there to rehabilitate the person. You learn your lesson. And then when you get out of jail, they don't give you a chance anyway. I mean, not everybody. There's places that
Yeah,
will.
it's a machine. It's a machine sometimes.
Yeah.
Michelle Alexander put a book out called The New Jim Crow, and she talked about from a prison. It's like another form of slavery, because what you do, like, you have these folk that make a mistake, to go to jail, and then it's hard sometimes. They go in for a minor offense, and they wind up spending a lot of time in jail because they don't have, like, representation. They don't have the money for bond or whatever, and they wind up getting grafted into that system. And we're gonna make some mistakes. They used to have programs, but because some of the kids messed up on the program, that don't mean that what the old saying is, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Thank you.
If a mistake is made, that just look at that individual, but don't continue to work towards those programs of rehabilitation. And we should have that kind of way of talking with folk. Sometimes I remember that sitting and when we're doing group sessions, some of these guys, some of these rough, tough guys said, man, I've never been able to talk like this. I'm sitting in here and I'm sharing and expressing myself. He said, out there in the streets, I've never had the time. I've never been able to take the time because I'm too busy hustling and all that. And this has given me some new insight and to be able to talk. And it was for the first time, some of those guys were talking for the first time, being able to share and to express themselves. And imagine if someone had taken the time with them when they were younger and, just to work with them, to work. And that's where I feel so blessed, because all throughout my life, I've had those folk who stepped in and were able to, just say, young man, or, just would say, no, you don't want to do that, And even though I was hard-headed sometimes and didn't hear some of them, it would come to me and I would say, wow, he was on point. He was
you describe me perfectly, because sometimes I do have those moments, like I said, I just, then I realize, I'm like, why am I so angry? What am I doing this for? Why am I acting like this? And then I'd step back and say, all right. But what's we were talking about, people not given a chance, even if you're proven not guilty. An example would be Richard Jewell of the Olympics, 1996 in Atlanta. He found the bomb, and then there was rumors that he planted the bomb so he could make himself a hero. They proved that was not true at all. But then always after that, people are like, oh, you're the guy that made it. Like, no, always. And they said, like, for years later, he couldn't get a job. He couldn't do all these different things because he always had that stigma of like, oh, you're the guy that planted the bomb. Like, no, we proved that was not true. So it's just, unfortunately, how they say, innocent until proven guilty. You're guilty. And,
don't always work through it.
Yeah. All you have to do is see your name in the paper, or just even somebody will say something online. That's what's so scary about, again, I'll go back to the online. Somebody could say anything about you, and that can ruin your whole life in a way. Like, oh, this person did this, and no, they didn't do this. And like, just other people are going to see it, like, oh my God, I can't believe this. So it's just, unfortunately, that's why I love, you go out there and let people know that there is a chance for them and life is not all bad. But I also read, and unfortunately, it's in the beginning of the intro, I was trying to read it and I didn't realize it was cut off, but you were an addiction counselor as well.
Yeah.
Now, what was that like?
That is it's really especially when I was working with dual diagnosed patients who had not only addiction but mental health issues, being able to learn to talk with them and work with them, it's challenging because addiction can be really a hard sell for people. But having gone through it myself and just being able to overcome it, and also, just so being able to relate and say, okay, there's other avenues. So it's a struggle sometimes because once people get addicted to something, they gotta really fight to come out of it. But still, just be there. A lot of it is being there, being able to talk to them, let them know that there's some other choices you can make. I love doing it because I saw some kids make it out. I saw some make it out, and I saw them turn their life around. And one of the guys, I was so proud of him because he came out of that, and then on top of that, he became a champion counselor. Because even the guys, I would run across some guys that would be so rough that I'd be like, and he would say, "Send them to me," and I was like, "Wow," because they would be guys that shoot and gave thousands of chances, and they keep doing the same thing, but he never gave up. And I said, "Man, wow!" I was so proud of him because him and I, it was crazy because he and I used to argue all the time. And he was like, I was trying to break you down. And I said, yeah, I know you was trying to break me down. But he said, in that battle, I gained a lot of respect for you. And he said, even though you didn't realize it, he said, you helped me to change. And I kept saying to myself, man, I don't know if this guy will ever make it. And he turned out to be such a great counselor. And I was like, because he used to give me such a hard time. And I would always just, he said, I was trying to break that smile and that piece off your face. He said, but you didn't give in. I said, I don't know. I said, yeah, you were challenged. But I was the results were so great afterwards. He became such a champion counselor, and that I was glad because he would take in even sometimes what we would consider the impossible guys, and he would never give up on it.
Oh, good. Yeah, no, I love that. What kind of drugs were people addicted to? Did you deal with heroin, like the heavy stuff, alcohol?
You deal with it all. You deal with the alcohol, the heroin. You deal with the PCP. You deal with wet. You deal and those were the hardest. The ones that were dealing with the chemical based stuff. That was like they would lose their minds sometimes.
Imagine.
And there was a kid that we were trying to work with, who he smoked that and like sort of crack. What they call it? Like the angel, like he messed with the angel dust. And he just blew his mind. He was such an intelligent kid. And then you got those who just go off the deep end. There was one guy, he was so intellectually smart, but then he snapped and wound up, he was in a Dunkin' Donuts line and getting some coffee, and some guy said something and he just went off on him and beat the guy up. And I was like,
wow.
And this was after we finally were able to get him to settle down and to do. So you never know how this stuff is going to affect some kids.
It's true. It's true.
And some, it's like it's like mental illness. Sometimes there's some folk who can take who don't have to take medication. They can get out of depression through therapy and stuff. And then there's some who chemically based, they have a chemical imbalance, and so they have to take medication. Yes. So in order to, and working in that mental health field, because I did also worked as a parent. I had a son. I lost a son. My oldest son committed suicide.
Sorry about that.
That was in one of the hardest situations for me with him. Just trying to get him to realize that, you know, it's just, and he was doing well when it happened. And so I wind up working in the mental health field a lot because you know, it's just my experience going through that. And so I find myself being gravitating towards these kids, not even trying, but they would come to me.
So wait, did you go into the field because of your son?
Not really. I was
Okay.
already in the field, basically, but when I started doing dual diagnosed counseling, I started doing mental health and drug addiction counseling together. And basically, I guess it became even more prominent. I mean, I was already doing it. I was already working with it, some of it because of him, but I got to working because of him. For some reason, I began to understand other kids better. And so my heart was there. It's still, my heart's already always been there to work with folk, to work with young men and women. I remember one time we were sitting in a class and we were all learning some stuff, and it was 3 young ladies and we were learning, and they were telling their story. And by the time they finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the class, including mine. I was like, it was so powerful what they were telling that, you know, the tears were just flowing in, but they were able to get their story out, and they were so happy about that, and I was happy about it too.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you were able to take a horrible experience and turn it into a positive to help other people, instead of just giving up and saying, oh, you know, my life is over, I lost my son. You actually said, you know what, I'm going to become even stronger, even better. I want to help these people. So, and I'm sure, just like with the they know you came, I mean, you're genuine and you're real and you went through this. So people have a lot more respect for you because you're not just some guy preaching the word and you're like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's never seen this. He doesn't know it. He's never been through this. You actually lived through it. So they can say, you know what? He knows what he's talking about. And they probably listen to you a lot more than they would somebody else that just came off the street and lived a, you know, a comfortable life and never even saw a drug addict before that day.
Took a while, but you know, we got through it. It took a while. It's a very painful moment. You just see kids and you see them a little better. And for a while, it was even hard to look at him because for his friends, it took a little while for me to get comfortable again. You know, they were there. Yeah. People are there, and I appreciate that. But I thank God. I thank God that he was able to help me to use that experience.
Amen.
To work with other people. And you know, sometimes you can devalue yourself, but I'm thankful. I'm so grateful. That's why every now and then, I guess he just sends somebody your way to encourage you some more. Yeah. when you hit those moments, because we have those moments.
Oh yeah, so everybody has that moment where like, I just want to get home. Why am I doing this? This is not even worth it. I'm not getting through that anybody. And then somebody, you changed my life. And then it makes you want to go ahead for another 20 years. Now, when you first graduated college or got out of high school, is this what the field that you went into, counseling, or no?
I was going to college to become a math teacher.
Oh, wow. Took a little detour there.
I hated English. I hated social stuff. I just didn't, you know, I considered myself to be really shy, you know, had a hard time talking to girls, all that. I just considered myself as not that social person. But life changes and it changed. So that was not my intention. I started off wanting to be a math teacher because I said, all I got to do is deal with numbers and, and I was really good in math. So, I always got A's in that. So I said, that's what I'm going to do. But life just throws you a curve sometimes.
Yeah.
But then I started reading. And most of my stuff, I was reading history, I was reading Black history, I was reading social books about change. And I just began to change within. I just began, and then I saw things. So, and it should have been a forerunner because I remember I was bringing the word Sunday for Father's Day. And I remember talking about the fact that when I was 8 years old, I saw a picture of Emmett Till. And that sort of changed something inside of me. It made me, I used to be very outgoing and, just the kid that loved everybody. And then I became introverted. And, because there's some evil people in the world.
Oh, it is.
Before that, I no matter if he was evil or not, I loved on you. I would just be I'd be that kid that you would want to say, shut up. You're too happy.
It's funny because I'm just the opposite. I grew up, I was severely shy. They sent me to the guidance counselor in 8th grade. They wanted to know why I wouldn't talk to the kids. I don't know what happened, what snapped. All of a sudden I graduated high school. I was in bands, I did stand-up comedy, I wrote a book, I do this, I did radio. I have no idea. I think one day I just said, I'm not having fun. I need to change this. And luckily,
Yeah.
I'm so glad I'm able to do this. I'm able to stop in the moment and say, you know what am I doing wrong? So a lot of times people say, oh, I wish I did this, or I wish I did that. So I sometimes I'll stop and think, I don't like this. And I was so happy that I did change. But yeah, I do know what you mean. But for me, it was just the opposite. I started off like that and then sort of gradually became more and more outgoing and outspoken.
Yeah, I was shy too myself.
Yeah, people don't believe that about me now.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but they don't, but it's like I said, for a while, people wouldn't even talk to me because I had that look on my face. Like, my friend who's like Kevin, who's like 6'4", 340 pounds, said to me, you're the kind of guy that if I got in a fight with it, I would have to kill you because he said, wow, you would keep coming at me. And that's how I was back then. But I was like, now I've changed. And now they call me the big teddy bear or whatever.
Big teddy bear.
You're a lover, not a fighter anymore.
Anybody around?
So did you actually start off as a math teacher? Did you get that far, or were you in the middle of college?
No. In college, I sort of changed because I became the resident militant in college. I became that guy that was always pushing for, that led the protest movement, and we marched on the president's office. I was the one that stared up people. I just became that radical because I was reading all these books. I was reading all these books, Soul on Ice, all the radical Stokely Carmichael, H. Rap Brown. I was reading Franz Fanon. I was reading so much stuff that I became that Malcolm X. I was reading all this stuff, and my whole philosophy was changing. And I was like, we got to do something about this, all these issues. And I became the campus radical.
Love it.
Man.
And they were like, wow, Coop said, don't do this or don't do that. And, I was leading protest movements and all kind of stuff. And, so that's what I became, and so I moved away. I started taking philosophy and social classes and stuff like that, and moved away from the math.
We're all glad you did. There's a lot of people out there that are very happy that you did.
I know.
I'm not sure of the time frame, but did you ever happen to, doing your protests, run into people like Martin Luther, Malcolm X, any of these people? Did you ever go to any of their rallies?
Malcolm died the year I started being a radical.
Okay.
Martin Luther King, I was at protest, like I got arrested on the Green and back in 1970, 71, they had a big rally on the Green. I was riding around. I don't know if you ever heard of Stokely Carmichael, but he was one of the Black Power movement guys. I was in the organization with him. I used to drive from here to South Carolina and down south and stuff like that. And we would go attend rallies and stuff. Yeah. So I met Jesse Jackson.
Wow.
And we just did. I had Huey. I don't the Huey P. Newton of the Black Panther Party.
Yeah.
I had him come to the school to speak. I had him come up to the University of New Haven to speak. So yeah, I was involved in movements and I met these people. I worked with them. And yeah, so I've been involved with this stuff for years. And yeah, I had them come and talk and speak. And then one guy, I worked with SNCC folk. I had one of the guys from SNCC come up and speak at the school too. And he was in the car with me one time and my car backfired.
Boom.
And he jumped out the car because he thought somebody was shooting at him.
Everybody say boom. Yeah. Yeah.
He said, because he had been shot at so many times down south.
Yeah.
And so I was like, nah, that's just my car.
Hey, guys, did you meet Louis Farrakhan?
No, I never met Louis Farrakhan.
I met him. Man.
No,
what a speaker, man. Ooh.
Yeah,
man.
I know. He was. Oh, I went, this is crazy. I went to a rally one time. It was a Muslim rally. I was never a Muslim.
Yeah.
I went to a rally and I'm holding my daughter and they take my picture and it's on the front page of the Amsterdam News.
Oh.
The same daughter, I was sitting at a protest in New Haven at a school and they take a picture of me holding her. Again, two different incidents, but I'm like, so I was living in Baltimore at the time and all my friends say, how in the world of all these thousands of people at the rally, they wind up taking your picture? I said, I don't know. It was just
timing.
I don't know the whole, I'm not sure exactly what he did. My fiance's grandfather, he was high up in one of the churches and she has pictures of him with Martin Luther King, JFK, Jimmy Carter. So we went to go see a documentary on Martin Luther King recently. I think it was last year, year before. And they're at the rally, front row, and we see a picture. She goes, oh my God, that's my grandfather. So she started crying. It was very interesting. I'm not sure exactly what church he was high up in, but he definitely, I saw some pictures and he met with a lot of influential people.
Yeah, I love, I used to go to a lot of jazz concerts.
I love jazz.
I met Dizzy Gillespie. I met Dizzy, and I met this guy. Dizzy was so cool. He was like just so down to earth. So I was like, at the time, I was learning how to play a trumpet. So I said to Dizzy, I said, how do you get them high notes? He said, look high.
Look high.
I'm glad he didn't say get high. Then you might have to counsel him.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge jazz. Actually, it's funny. Just very recently, last week, there was a documentary. So I love documentaries. It was on the New Orleans Jazz Festival. And it was they had their 50th anniversary right before COVID hit. And it was the first time 2020, 2021 were the first 2 years ever. They'd had the festival. They came back with it this year, but there was so many great jazz musicians. I went to the Newport Jazz Fest in the Hartford ones, but I've never been to any of the big ones. I've never seen any of no Dizzy Gillespie's, no Buddy Riches, no Gene Krupas. I've never seen any of them, but I enjoy them very much and I listen to them all the time. Who else have you met in the jazz world?
Freddie Hubbard was a big jazz guy back then. I also met, I've seen Miles. I didn't get to meet him.
Yeah.
He was, I went to a jazz show late at night one time. It was a midnight jazz show, and they had Sarah Vaughan. They had a lot of great. They had Dizzy was there. What's his name? Rassan, Roland Kirk. A lot of them, and I went down there with my girlfriend at the time, and like they only had one. I couldn't get in because they had sold out, and they had one ticket in Stokely Carmichael. So I ran into him, and he said, "I got one ticket." He said, "I can get your girl in because I know." He said, "And then you're just gonna have to fend on your own." He said, "But I know that if I get her in, you're gonna find a way to get in here."
Yeah.
And he said, and then it's like you're talking about 2,000 people or more. They got in, and he was right. Because I got a ticket, I got in, and I found them within 5 or 10 minutes. He said, "I know you would be motivated to find me." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right."
Great incentive. Take my woman.
Yeah.
His methods may be crude, but they're very effective.
So that was funny. But yeah, you run. One thing I love about them, a lot of the musicians that I talked, they were so down to earth.
Yeah, I love that.
So down to earth.
That's a good thing.
They big, no matter how big, they were. Marion Meadows, all of them, they were just like reachable, and that's what I liked about it. It's just. You learn, and then you just, some of them so willing to teach. I mean, we go to jazz shows, we run into people like Kim Waters and other, and we talk to them after the show, and they so. I go to a lot of shows at Southern, and sometimes you can talk with the guys afterwards. There's a concert in Waterbury. This guy, Chris Big Dog,
Oh yeah, I know Chris Big Dog. Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, he's good, and he's down there. I met,
he is.
What's her name? What's the I can't think, the heavy set lady. She sings. Can't think of her name right now.
Yeah, she does something with Chris.
Yeah, she just did.
Is she jazz or is it more pop?
Yeah, she's jazz. She's jazz.
Oh, I'm trying to think. I'm sure if you mention her name, I would know.
Start with an M.
Yeah. This is what I love. These are times when I love things like Google.
Yep. And then the thing is, I have her on my playlist. So.
Oh, okay.
Cause she's nice. She's nice. And I ran into her in Baltimore. She's from Baltimore, and I just happened to be visiting my folks, and I ran into her, and I was like, wow. Mesa.
Oh yeah, I know that. You know what I like about Miles Davis? You mentioned him earlier.
Yeah.
I like the fact that he basically just went up on stage and jammed. I mean, you have an idea what they're going to play, but the musicians are like, just get up there and play.
Miles was so smooth, smooth. And Chris Bodie, I met Chris Bodie.
Okay.
Chris Bodie, I met him at, and I was like, my wife was like, take a picture with him. I was like,
take a picture.
Wow. Ask him some questions, because they had a little workshop in between jazz. So it's just fun. It's just so much fun. People got to get out and just enjoy life as much as you can.
Yeah.
Enjoy it and just really get up, say hi. I am so glad now I can get on the elevator and speak. I used to get on the elevator. If you didn't speak to me, I didn't speak to you.
Yeah.
See, so I'm just the opposite. My fiance gets so mad at me because she's very shy. She goes, "Don't leave people alone." I was like, I'm not bothering you.
Rich.
I just love talking to people, and I love meeting so many That's again, I mentioned this, I think last time I interviewed you. I said I love this show because I get a chance to talk to so many interesting people from all walks of life, and I learned so much just doing the show, talking to people like you. And but she gets so angry. It's like, she always thinks I'm bothering them. It's like, no. I said, I said, I can read the room. If they're not really interested in talking, I'll say, all right, well, have a great day. But sometimes I'll start talking and talking and talking. And I learned so much. And sometimes I'll be like, hey, man, you're really cool. I want to check you out. Like, because I do a lot of different things. I was doing the comedy at the time. Like, yeah. And so I became friends with them. But I'm like you in that respect now, where in the past, I wouldn't want to say, just leave me alone. I don't want to talk to anybody. I'm in my own little world. Now it's like, hey, how's it going?
That's so good. So good. So good.
Yeah, Pam would say, come on, let's go. We want let's go. Let's go. I said, I'll be in a minute, Pam.
What kills me is like so many people are so angry about things that really aren't affecting them. Like,
Right.
I can name examples of like when stuff that's going on in the world. Like, oh, but you're retired. You have, it's not the person I'm thinking about. He doesn't drive. He doesn't go anywhere. He's all fired up about the gas prices. And it's like, yeah, when's the last time you actually took your car besides down the street to go to Big Lots? I said, why are you so angry over this? I said, just enjoy life. Life is not that tough. And just, things like that. Just, that's one example. So for me, I always think, here's how I look at it. Like, my brother's wife is dying of pancreatic cancer. My boss's wife just died from cancer. And every time somebody says something, I'm like, I bet you my brother's wife wishes she had your problem. And then, oh yeah, you don't understand. It's like, I do understand. Your problems aren't that bad if you look at it. And I always have that mentality. I'm like, life is pretty damn good. There's not.
It is. It is. And you like you say, this too will pass. Whatever it is, it's gonna pass.
Oh, yeah,
so enjoy it. Enjoy life. It's just some people so busy complaining they don't do anything.
Complain.
And it's like, come on, let's do something. You try to get some folk to move, and just enjoy life. I tell them all the time. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna do something, because life is too short as it is. So enjoy it. I mean, and like you say, so if something's wrong, okay, it's all right. We'll find a way to deal with, or whatever. But let's move on. I'm 75 now, and I'm just like, listen, I am glad to be here. I'm glad to be able to do stuff. And, I'm going to do stuff until I can,
You're a role model, brother,
so
role model.
I'm just going to keep enjoying it as much as I can. And I'm learning to just do that.
Yeah,
that's why, just open up, speak, just tell people about the goodness and just continue to live the goodness. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, good news.
My wife always said, live your best life. Just do it.
Yeah.
And that's what we got to do, Wibo. Just continue.
You're right, brother. Keep moving.
Wait for me, guys. I'm right there with you. Don't leave me behind.
Keep moving.
Well, you are a huge inspiration, not only me, Wibo, but so many other people. And I really love having you on the show. And I want to have you again next time. Bring your wife.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I wish that we would have, that's cool because I love being with her.
Yeah. No, see, I love this because you're in your 70s. Maybe you slowed down a little bit, but I know people in their 40s that cannot keep up with you. People in their 30s, I know that would tire just listening to the things that you've done. So I love the fact that you're still going. You still have that passion. You're not letting in things get, things will get you down every once in a while, like everybody, but you don't let it stop you 100% and you fight it. So we really do thank you for being on the show. Keep up the great work. And
appreciate being here. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for this platform. It's great.
Get you back on the show. Look at the calendar.
Oh yeah, you have an open invitation. Anytime you want to come on the show, anytime you want to talk about something, even if you just want to come on the show and hang out, you're always welcome.
Yep.
You have carte blanche with the local artist show. You and your wife.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't forget Effie.
Hey, bro. Ain't no way.
So before you go, though, is there anything that's coming up that you want to promote? Any websites? Any where people can find you?
Yeah, well, we have our Culture is Beautiful. We have a website. We have a Facebook page, and we just getting people. We meet every fourth month. The fourth Monday and every month. Just still trying to recruit people to go out there and talk about culture and have people work with us as best they can. There's so many activities going on around
Yes.
that we want to continue to promote and to work with. So we like working with others and just getting things done. So,
Yeah, you do a great job too, you nephew.
Yes. Keep up the great work.
Yeah.
thank you.
All right.
I told you.
Wraps up the latest episode of the Local Art Show with Rich and Wibo. A huge thanks goes out to the Reverend Angaza, was it Mwando?
Yeah.
Reverend Angaza Mwando. Hey, as I said, you have carte blanche. You are going to be the next co-host of the Local Artist Show. Me, you, and Wibo. That's it. Me, you, Wibo, and Effie. Pretty soon it's going to be like. Pretty soon the screen's going to be like the Brady Bunch with like
The Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
Hey, it can be done.
Yep.
Yes, it can. Yes,
You
it
know
can.
it can be done by our great editor, John Bristol. I want to thank you for always doing a superb job making the show available each and every week. But lastly, definitely not least though, need to thank you, the viewer, for always tuning in. Enjoy your day, everyone.
From the frenetic mind of author Rich Sear. 5 terrifying short stories, now available in one collection. Confessions of a Frenetic Mind. 5 tales of blood-curdling terror, available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.